So rather than going back and forth where like, well, does this time work? And does this time work? And then you're like, oh, does my hair look good for Zoom? And it's like, oh, my Wi-Fi's bad. I'm in the car. It's like, okay, no, I can review it when I'm in a focused, quiet place and I can get you the best response possible. And then, hey, if you still need a meeting afterwards, schedule it. It obviously deserves a meeting, but I would encourage everybody to start with a screencast and see if you can't eliminate the meeting before it happens.
Hey, it's Renee. Welcome to the Into the Wild Show, a podcast designed to encourage women to take their back of the napkin idea, launch it, and grow a wildly successful business. I founded We Wild Women, an entrepreneur training company, to help women like you, moms and go-getters, start the business of their dreams the right way. Not too long ago, I launched my $1 million agency when I was 8 months pregnant with my first son and welcomed my second son only 11 months later. So I know how to grow businesses and babies. Join me as I teach you the guiding principles and how to start and grow your business while overcoming the voice in your head screaming, "It's not possible." These raw and funny episodes will make you feel like you're right here with me, sipping on some Pinot and leaving more confident saying, "Yes, I can." Every episode leaves you with some action items and a real kick in the ass to get started. Here on Into the Wild, you'll hear from other trailblazing entrepreneurs and experts because I know that the best advice is from someone who's successfully done it before. So put your headphones on, grab a cup of coffee, and tune in because Into the Wild is about to begin.
Subscribe to my mom's podcast.
Hey, you wild women. My next guest is a productivity expert as well as a co-founder of the Lifehack Method. Through her multi-six-figure productivity company, she serves as systems expert, teaching clients hard-hitting efficiency techniques and proven accountability strategies that have helped clients generate millions in revenue while saving thousands of hours. In the past 7 years, she's helped more than 50,000 professionals, including executives from Facebook, Google, Uber, and PepsiCo, who want to prevent burnout and create more freedom in their lives. She now lives a nomadic lifestyle with her partner and co-founder and their 2-year-old daughter. They are currently living in Medellin, Colombia. So please welcome Carey Bentley.
Thanks so much for having me, Renee. I'm super excited to be talking with you today.
Yeah, and so I learned that Medellin is spelled Medellin because the double L is the J, right? G?
Yes, you pronounced it like a local. So that was very impressive because most people say Medellin, which would be more of an obvious way of saying it.
And Medellin sounds French.
Yes, good point.
It does. Okay, so let's dive into some quick questions. It gives the audience a chance to get to know you better, faster. Love to know, where are you from?
I am from the beautiful city of Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I wasn't born there, but fully raised. And so I am a Midwesterner at heart.
Oh, cool. So you understand the cold and the snow and all that stuff.
Now maybe you understand why I live in Medellin, Colombia most of the time.
Yes. And you can't see it, but there's beautiful tall pointed trees. Like are those specific to Colombia? They're very unique.
They have a lot of evergreens here. They just call them pinos, like evergreen pines. I'm not really sure about the species.
They're cool.
Yeah, they are cool.
It almost looks Italian, like the Italian things you'd seen like Tuscany, but pointier.
Exactly. Yeah, they're and taller. Yeah, the macaw parrots come and sit on them. And then because the macaws are quite big, the tree actually tips to the side. It's hilarious.
Oh, that's cool. I love it. Okay, so what is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is one from Seneca, and I'll modify it just slightly. It's the woman who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive. So he said man, but I say woman.
Oh,
and I just think it's so powerful because it really speaks to what I believe in and what I coach all my clients in, which is the power of planning ahead. And as women, we already do this, I feel quite well, but it's just one of the superpowers we have that I feel like can be dialed in and benefit not only us, but everyone around us.
I love that. Say that again, the quote one more time.
It is the woman who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive.
So basically, if I said that to my husband and I'm like, I'm not worrying, I'm actually anticipating the coming of troubles, then I would sound more believable.
Yeah. I mean, this is Seneca. I mean, you can really leverage that. A lot of famous war generals have said similar things. It's all about strategy. It's all about planning. Yeah. When you think of it that way, it makes it seem less diminutive and it levels it up to the importance that it should command in your mind and the mind space of those around you.
Yeah. And I think about worrying as there's part of it that I know fundamentally to help us survive. Like they say women worry more than men. I don't know if that's true. Maybe we probably just articulate it more. But if you worry all the time, then it's probably not good. But a little bit of worry is great because then it helps you anticipate the roadblocks that could happen and to prepare for them.
Exactly. Like if you're a mom, you might have heard of something called mental load, which is basically the amount of worry and planning and thinking that moms tend to take on the vast majority of in the household. And a lot of that is honestly, it's taken to a bad level most of the time. Like you said, a little bit is good, a lot is not better. So when it's done correctly, purposefully, and then you're able to shift into execution mode and action mode, that's really where the sweet spot is. When you just stay in that worrying state, you just generate fear, you generate anxiety, you generate overwhelm. And the result of that is inaction, right? So you trigger your fight or flight response in your body, which is incredibly stressful and does not actually help you with the world we live in today, where we're not running away from a bear. We're tackling mind knowledge work via our laptops most of the time.
Which can sometimes feel like we're being attacked by a bear, right?
Yeah, just as stressful as being attacked by a bear.
Yeah, maybe some days I feel like I would prefer being attacked by a bear. Okay, so what's one of your best pieces of business advice that you ever received?
Let's see. I think one of the best things I ever heard when we were growing our company was to not worry about all the different tactics you could use to grow your business. Simply pick one and stick with it until you mastered it or until it starts getting some kind of result for you. Because if you spread your attention too thin across all the different possible things you could do to market and grow your business, you're really not going to make enough progress in any one area. And the goal when you're an entrepreneur is to get yourself to a sustainable place, grow your business without getting burned out. And unfortunately, burnout is a huge problem, not just amongst the working population of professionals, but amongst entrepreneurs, because you take on all that risk, all that fear about your business failing, all of that's on you. There's no soft safety blanket to land on if you fail. So really the key to having a successful business for me is finding that road to success without burnout. And one of the key things for that is just choosing one marketing strategy, sticking with it until you get results before you add on any other strategies.
Have you read the book Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz?
Yeah, I have.
So I've about this. Him. Oh, no way. So he talks about the QBR, the Queen Bee role. And that happens to be the chapter I'm on right now. So it's really fresh in my mind. And I'm like, oh, this can apply to so many facets in our life, not just business. So the Queen Bee role is essentially, think about a beehive. The bee's responsibility is to keep the queen alive. The queen's responsibility is to make sure that they keep reproducing bees, right? So that they're thriving. And that's it. That's their sole thing. Think about what you do in business, what you do in your household, what you do, as an athlete or an artist. It's like, what's the one thing you do that is the only thing that is absolutely necessary to be successful, called the QBR. So it's very similar because we talk about that too in like marketing in your business.
Right.
Okay. So what was one of your biggest business mistakes?
Let's see. One of our early on business mistakes that we made was this is going to be a shocker, so prepare yourself, was to stop networking. I would say, yes, Renee's eyes just opened in shock. Yes. So the reason why we did this was it was just getting too overwhelming for us. My husband and I had both come from more of a corporate background. We were new in most ways to entrepreneurship. And it was just so hard to even learn the basics of like web design, getting a webinar off the ground. I mean, even though I came from corporate marketing and agency marketing is nothing like online marketing. It's a different animal. And so we were just feeling super overwhelmed by that. Plus, we had recently become a nomadic and we were traveling around the world, and we weren't in a position to go to the conferences that normally we would have wanted to go to start networking and building that sort of foundation. So we were like, you know what, let's just forget it. Like, we got this, we got it on our own. And I do think in retrospect, that did make it hard for us to grow as rapidly as we wanted to. Now also, thanks to the pandemic, networking online is much easier. And there's the tools and technologies you need to do that. So we have a much heavier focus on that. And it has been really beneficial in a lot of ways to us. Not every connection is great, but you just get that 1 in every 10 or 1 in every 20 that pays off really big time. So yeah, if I looked back, I would say, that probably was not so great for us.
No. Yeah. I mean, I think about if you lost everything as an entrepreneur, but you were still a kind person and you weren't a jerk, you end up like the most valuable thing is your network, are the people that you know. And the more you can do it well, as in like giving back to your community, connections and network, the more that like the abundance, it comes back to you. So say your business did fail and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Well, you probably have a handful of people that can coach you or mentor you out of this hole, or people that can offer you a job if that's what you need.
Or the truth of it is too, is it's a point of differentiation for your brand, because a lot of businesses are offering very similar services these days. And the fact of it is, you might look at someone who's super successful and be like, well, I have everything they have. Why are they so successful and I'm not there yet? And you might want to ask yourself like, well, maybe check out their network, because much like in any corporate job or any social environment of any sort, a lot of the time, the difference is just who's friends with who has made the effort to connect and nurture those relationships versus who hasn't.
I love that. So I wrote this down, that your network is a point of differentiation for your brand or your company. And it's so gosh darn true, because I think about some women in my network alone who've been scaled or amplified their business 10x over somebody else who started at the same time, maybe even offering something that's not as good quality because of their network. And it's like, yes, who you know matters, but also how you treat people matters equally.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Okay, so one last quick question. What is a book that you can recommend today?
Okay, I would highly recommend a new book that has come out called Free Time by Jenny Blake. It is a book on productivity, but it's for entrepreneurs specifically. And what I love about it is it gives you like so much more information than a typical productivity book. It is really almost like a handbook, because you could read it and reread it and go back to specific chapters. And she's sharing not just theory, but also tactics, which is also kind of rare in a productivity book. So I would highly recommend that. That just came out a couple of months ago. So it's super new, but a really, really highly recommended read for female entrepreneurs.
So it's Jenny Lake or Blake?
Blake with a B.
Blake. Okay. Yeah, I am not a fluff kind of girl. I take on a handful of PR clients a year. And part of my process is when they ask for a formal proposal, I just say, I'm going to give you a list, like a bullet list in an email of the things I'm going to do. And you can say yes or no, how much it costs. And then we submit a formal agreement. But I think there's just so much onus on like the philosophy and the theory, and which is great. It's important. But when you miss the tactical, strategic, like get stuff done, how do you do this? It's just kind of like, I feel like it reminds me of a book that I would read in college, like a philosophy book, which is fine.
Right. And I don't mean to like bash productivity books. Like they're obviously, I mean, I'm in that field and there's some really great books out there. It's just that it's actually really hard to get great productivity advice these days, because a lot of people are experts simply from their own experience, from their personal life. But because they're not professional productivity coaches, they don't actually bring that wealth of knowledge that somebody who's actually coached hundreds or tens of thousands of people that they would bring. So that's sort of my personal beef with productivity books as a productivity coach.
No, I like that. And I appreciate your perspective too. It's important. Okay, so let's dive into the nitty gritties. What inspired you to start your company?
Well, 10 years ago, I was working in corporate, like I mentioned, and I was super happy there. I was working really hard. I was working really long hours, but I was like, yes, this is what I've worked my entire life. to do. This is exactly what my parents wanted for me. This is exactly what I thought success should look like. But the problem was I have a chronic health illness. I've had it since I was a child, but it's highly exacerbated by stress. And this is not uncommon. It's an autoimmune condition. About 1 out of every 7 people in the US has something like this.
Oh, wow.
So there's dozens of them. They're not just the one I have, but it really impacts your quality of life if you're not able to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And when I was looking at my bosses and my boss's boss, I was like, they're just working like even harder and longer than I am. They seem even more stressed out than I am now. Like, why am I putting myself on this trajectory where there's not really a promise of the lifestyle that I thought I should want? I mean, there's more money, but at the end of the day, like, coming out of the 2008 crash, a lot of people coming out of that were like, maybe money's not everything, right? So what I sort of ended up doing was just losing the motivation to work. I'm someone who loves working. And so to lose that motivation to work, to experience that sense of burnout was really frustrating to me. I was sharing that with my boyfriend, who's now my husband, and he's a little bit more like daring. He's like the daring one in the relationship. He's like, oh, well, you should totally quit your job. And I'm like, what? Like, are you crazy? Like, this is not something a responsible person should do. But he had started up this sort of productivity coaching business that I thought was just a side hustle. And shockingly, it was getting such good results for people. And I was looking at him and I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're changing people's lives. Like, he was just bringing in friends at that point. He was teaching him some of this productivity stuff that he had learned. And I was like, oh man, like, he's having such a big impact. I'm sitting here in this corporate job, not really doing all that much in terms of impacting people's lives. Maybe I could actually do this entrepreneur thing and have a chance to make a difference, right? And so that's something that's powered us through all of the last 8 years. It's just a sense of satisfaction of like, wow, like every day we're getting messages from clients who have not only saved tons of time, but they've repaired relationships. They've gotten their health back. They found more time to spend with their kids while their kids were in that key learning and growing school years. They generated enough revenue to retire early. Like, this is the kind of thing that I felt like, yeah, this is why I'm an entrepreneur. This is why I started this company, because it totally makes it worth it.
Oh, I love it. My husband is actually writing a book. It's like the buyback principle, which teaches startup founders how to essentially buy back their time. So it's like kind of who to hire, what resources to invest in order to get your time back. Because time is the most valuable thing. When it comes to your physical and mental health, you need that time to relax, you need the time to be with your family and to work out and to eat well. So it really comes down to time, right?
And I think people don't take it even quite far enough. Like, for example, my husband and I, and we just recently hit 7 figures. We work 4 hours a day. So a lot of entrepreneurs are bragging about like, oh, the revenue number, right? And it's like, what we like to talk about is like, well, how many hours are you actually working? Because if you're working yourself to the bone, you're really not enjoying yourself today in the present. That's sort of a core part of our philosophy here at the Lifehack Method is like, hey, this is not something we're working towards retirement. We're not putting happiness and putting freedom and flexibility out into the future where it's like this thing that you're working towards. It's something that you get to have now, and you get to have business success at the same time. So it's really a lot about that work-life balance.
I like that. I actually love that. Another metric would be your profits to revenue too, right?
Well, yeah, that's a whole other story, right?
It's the profit to hours worked. Because it's true. It's like, oh yeah, we're in a 6-figure business, but you're working 80-hour weeks. Like, nobody wants that. Yes, it's necessary when you're starting or launching or something's happening in a season in your business, but people don't sign up for that. Most entrepreneurs sign up for the freedom. I remember my husband, who was a SaaS coach, one of the world's top SaaS coaches, we were driving this weekend to a little town south of us just to hang out with our kids. And I asked him, why did he become an entrepreneur? And he goes, for the freedom. And I was like, yeah, me too. Like this morning, I went to my son's track and field meet that he was doing because I could move things around on my calendar. I could block that time out because like I want to go see my 9-year-old do a long jump that's really only like 2 feet. But the smile on his face when he saw me was all of the reason I needed to believe that, wow, this was the right move. Like that sales call, that coaching call, it can wait. It'll happen. Let me lead into this because it talks about planning your week. And I'd love to know, what mistakes are people making while they're planning their week?
Yes. Well, I mean, first of all, the biggest mistake people are making is not planning their week at all. We surveyed 5,000 professionals and we were like, hey, what do you think the number one thing is that's going to guarantee your productivity success? And 94% of them were like, oh yeah, planning is one of those things. You gotta plan ahead. They're like, okay, cool. So have you done that consistently for the last 4 weeks? And only 1% of people had run a heads up replanning process for the last 4 weeks without missing any weeks. And so this was a big eye opener for me and my husband, because this is something we thought was so basic. Obviously, everyone knows it, but we were like, well, then why is nobody doing it? And our theory is that there's a lot of resistance to planning because you're essentially pulling in a week or even a month's worth of anxiety and looking at it head on as you're planning. And that can be really scary. And so we tend to hear a lot from our clients like, oh, well, I mean, planning doesn't work for me. Or like, well, I make a plan, but then I don't stick to it. So what's the point of planning? Or like, I make a plan, but then my plan immediately goes off the rails. So, I just have the kind of life that you can't plan for. And a lot of these people are sort of like missing the point of planning. Again, sort of like Seneca said, just anticipating the coming of troubles really helps to take their power away. So I think this is one of the biggest mistakes people are making. I think the second biggest mistake people are making is they're sort of planning halfway. They're making a long list of priorities and they're like, okay, here's my priorities this week. I got to do these 10 things for my business. I got to do these 10 things for my family. And there's no buts about it. Like I just have to sit down and grind until all of these things are done. And there's a bunch of problems with this. Like, first of all, it leads you down this path of magical thinking where you're sort of hoping that when Monday comes around, you just have like a really, really great week where everything goes your way and you have all this energy and motivation to work and you just crush your to-do list. I mean, I kind of fall in that category a lot. I'm like, well, I'm such a hard worker and I'm a perfectionist. I can just do it. But the truth is, like, especially now that I have a family, I need to be much more realistic about how things are going to go down based on how past weeks have gone down. And I have to make sure that I'm choosing one leveraged priority to do each week and that I have the time blocked out to do that thing early on in the week, like literally Monday morning or latest Tuesday. Because what I found in my life and in coaching thousands of clients is that if you don't get it done early, life has a tendency to push all this other urgent stuff onto your plate and unexpected things happen. Your kid gets sick, whatever the case may be. And the rest of the week kind of it slips away from you. It happens. And then you end the week feeling like, oh my gosh, I did all this busy work and not my most important work. So just focusing on getting your top leveraged priority done on Monday has been a game changer for me and for the people I coach.
So eat the frog, right?
Yes, it's sort of like eat the frog, although I would change it a little bit. It's not just about what you're procrastinating on. A leveraged priority could be something that only takes you 10 minutes to do, but yet it makes a huge, huge difference in your life, meaning it makes all future weeks for yourself ideally easier. So it actually, as time goes by, your life should be getting easier and easier, not harder and harder. So that's sort of the nuance of leverage, which is a task or priority that is something that makes your future weeks easier, not necessarily the same or harder.
Can you give us an example of something that you do?
Yeah, so a leveraged priority. So one of the things that I'm doing right now actually is we're publishing a book. And this is a really highly leveraged activity for us in our business because writing a book kills a bunch of birds with one stone. First of all, it gives us a lot more credibility in our field. Second of all, it makes organic marketing activities a lot easier. Third of all, it makes some cold traffic marketing things unnecessary. So we'd actually maybe even be saving money on advertising down the line. And it also just gives us another tool to market. So it's another piece of content, an asset, if you will, that we can use as a tool in our marketing tool belt. So we'll have the book and we'll have the audiobook. So this kills a lot of birds with one stone for us. Oh, also, it gives us an excuse to talk to the media, right? Like It's a newsworthy event and now we've gotten spots on ABC and New York news channels and stuff like that as a result. So this is highly leveraged. Another key that it's leveraged is that nobody is chasing us down to write this book. This is not on somebody else's to-do list. They're not emailing us being like, where's your book? This is something that we really have to find the internal motivation and drive to sit down and write and do. So that's another key that it's a leveraged activity. So for example, this week, my number one leverage priority was to script out a bunch of supplemental video trainings that we're going to be providing along with the book. So again, this is like deep work, right? This is scripting content. This is not something any of my team members are asking me for. No one's emailing me about this. It's something only I can do, meaning I can't be delegating this to a team member. So that's my leverage priority for this week. It probably only took me like 2 or 3 hours to finish, but because it was cognitively demanding, I was tired at the end of that. But now that it's done, the rest of the week, can go to my daughter, can go to the dozens of other things on my to-do list that are urgent, but not necessarily important.
Yeah. So 2 things on this. Cal Newport's book, Deep Work. Is that what it's called? Deep Work. Have you read that? Yeah. So I learned from that to block out for Monday afternoons on most of the day Friday to do deep work, because those are the 2 days where it's like, I don't schedule calls on those days. There's no podcast recordings, coaching calls, sales calls, masterminds, nothing. It leaves space in the event something important or exciting does come up, then I can leverage that time knowing that it's open. But the reality is you need time scheduled into your week for that focused work. If you don't do it, it won't get done. And so right now I'm in the process of doing phase 1 of 75 Hard. So if you don't know what 75 Hard is, I talk about this a lot on the podcast because it's been a game changer for me. I'm doing the Live Hard year. I think that's what it's called. Essentially, it's an entire year of this program. It starts off by doing 75 days and you have to check off a list of criteria. If you don't do, you fail and you have to start over, of which is 2 45-minute workouts. One has to be outside, regardless of weather. A gallon of water, 10 pages of a book, progress pictures, a diet, no cheat meals, no booze. And I know there's stuff. Oh, and progress picture. I said that. I feel like I'm missing something else. And so phase 1, so I did that, completed that. And then phase 1 is all of that, plus a 5-minute cold shower, 10 minutes of visualization, and a critical power list. And I call it just the power list. And essentially, I write 5 things every morning in my little paper journal here. I list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these are the things that I have to do every day before I go to bed, or else I fail and I have to start over. And believe me, you don't want to start over because this is an extra 2 hours of your day that you have to find time for to complete. And so this has been a game changer for me. And I'm only on day 11, but I got more done in 11 days than I've gotten in 2 months. Because these are things that I know I can achieve by the end of the day. Like 100% no. Except one thing that I've been putting on is lights out at 9 p.m. And I've been successful. But last night it was very close because my son was awake, couldn't fall asleep, and he needed me. And it was like 8:49. And I turned to him and I said, Noah, you know I'm doing 75 Hard and you know how hard this is and how important this is to me. I actually need to be asleep in 11 minutes. So can we wrap this up? And he's like, yes, Mama, you go do that. I'm so sorry. Have a good night. Kisses. I'm like, I should do this every night. But anyway, that being said, is that intentionality, because it's easy to say, oh yeah, here's my to-do list and this is what my week looks like. But if you're not actually intentional by this, then you won't get it done. And the other thing with when I ran my agency is we were very intentional about not having any calls scheduled on Fridays. Mm-hmm. Clients couldn't even beg us to have a call on a Friday. It would have to be on a Monday because that was the day of the week that you had focused work, no meetings to get your work done that you couldn't do throughout the week because of all the meetings. Right. And then, hey, if you're caught up, it's like, that's great. You're ahead of the game. Then we had this thing called, my company was called Onboardly. We had this thing called Onboardly Labs where you can come up and think of like creative solutions for our business or other client stuff that is not really on your task list. You can be creative and innovative, or you can leave for the day because why not? Your work is done. And it really allowed that space. And what a beautiful thing happened within the company. And people knew they had that freedom on that day of the week to just do whatever they wanted. But if it wasn't scheduled, if it wasn't intentional, it would never have happened.
Absolutely. Ladies, I want you to be taking notes on a couple really crucial things that Renee just touched on. One being actually scheduling time for your most important work. And that means purposefully not scheduling other things like meetings or coffee or lunch dates or networking, not scheduling those on specific days of the week so that you have time to get your most important work done. Really defending your time. You have a right to defending your own time, and nobody is going to do it if you don't do it. So don't wait and hope that somebody else will notice how busy you are and come to your rescue, because it's not going to happen. Sorry, but you are more than capable of helping yourself do that. Second thing that I really loved that Renee talked about was this concept she calls intentionality. I would call it extreme ownership, where she's not letting any excuses creep into her plan. She is taking 100% ownership of her results. And even when it's something outside her control, like her son needing her at bedtime, she still took extreme ownership of that and found a way to get to her result regardless, which I really, really love, because it's so easy these days to point to outside things as like, oh, well, this happened and this happened. Well, that's why I didn't hit my result. But when you get serious and you're like, no, I am the source of everything in my life, good or bad. I am in charge of getting to the result that I want. Then that's really where the excuses melt away and the path becomes much more clear.
Yes, it is having that conviction and a confidence. I was thinking about this yesterday and today when I was trying to jump on a meeting with somebody that I was supposed to be doing some work with for like 15, 20 minutes. And his calendar was backed up and it was urgent that I have a quick download of something that had changed the trajectory of this project we were working on. And we're going back and forth on Slack. And I'm like, Wayne, just send me a voice memo telling me what's the change and what's required of me, and I can figure it out from there. And I was like, oh, how many of these instances in the world could have happened? And I think of this, it's the 60, 30, 50, none. 60-minute meetings could really be 30, 30-minute meetings could really be 15, 15-minute meetings could really be nothing, right? Is it not true? I went into a meeting the other day with the client, and he's previously corporate. He's now in a new startup. And every meeting with him is an hour. And I'm like, why? Why is it an hour? So I booked a 30-minute meeting, and it was the only time I had, and it had to happen. And he goes, I just don't think we'll be able to cover everything. I took 5 minutes the day before that meeting. I wrote an agenda. I put a timeline next to each item in that task. And then I sent it out to the people in the meeting. I said, it's my meeting. I'll run it. These are the things. Yes, no answers are yes, no. And then where I need you to interject with actually more stuff, then we will. We wrapped it up in 25 minutes. And he goes, I've never had a more efficient meeting in my life. And I was like, that's great. I need to get to work. Bye.
Okay, can we talk about meetings for just a second? Please. Because I absolutely love this. So first of all, we do not have meetings at Lifehack Method. We have one team meeting per week. And when I say meetings, I'm talking about internal team meetings that we would use to run our business. Obviously, we're a coaching company, so that involves some live trainings and live sessions of that sort. But in terms of actual meetings for our company, we have one meeting per week, and we have no internal emailing, and we have no Slack. We use a project management tool, and that's it. So I'm incredibly passionate about this subject. In fact, we just released a course about how we do it called Freedom from Meetings, which is a more in-depth version of that. But what I loved about what you said is the 60 could be a 30, right? And this 30 could be a 15, the 15 could be nothing. So really, all meetings could be nothing.
Ooh.
And what I would suggest replacing a lot of meetings with is a tool called screencasting, which is sort of like a voice memo, but it includes the visual of your screen. So it makes it a lot easier, like Loom. Yeah. Exactly. Loom is a free version of that, has a free version. And it's literally what we use all day, every day, because it can describe complex issues without needing to schedule a meeting. And we find a lot of clients go from those annoying, pesky 30-minute meetings all over their calendar to having a 2-minute screencast from one person, a 2-minute screencast in reply, and that's it. And the best part is because it's asynchronous, you can do it at a time that works for you. So rather than going back and forth where like, well, does this time work? And does this time work? And then you're like, oh, does my hair look good for Zoom? And it's like, oh, my Wi-Fi's bad. I'm in the car. It's like, okay, no, I can review it when I'm in a focused, quiet place and I can get you the best response possible. And then, hey, if you still need a meeting afterwards, schedule it. It obviously deserves a meeting, but I would encourage everybody to start with a screencast and see if you can't eliminate the meeting before it happens.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. I hate meetings. I hate meetings so much. And that's why I will always argue for half of what people want. They want a 5-minute meeting, they get 2.5 minutes.
Nice.
But it's unbelievable because Loom, like the free version, I don't know, even if the paid for version, only allows for you to record 5 minutes. And if you prepare ahead of time with what you're recording on your screen, your notes and what you're going to say, you don't need 5 minutes unless you're doing brain surgery, which I'm really hoping you're not doing over Loom.
Nope, that would not be something you can do over Loom. But that's not something that people would want to do. So that works out well. It is shocking. Yeah, sometimes my husband, I'll listen to him record a screencast and even just recording it, his thoughts on the matter will become so much more clear. He's kind of like a talker. I'm not really a talker per se. When it comes out of my mouth, it comes out exactly the way I intend for it to come out. I don't need to say it again. But he's someone who kind of thinks by talking. So he'll record and he'll be 3 minutes in and he'll be like, no, canceling this. I'm starting over again. Because all of a sudden he's thought of a way to say it that's much more quick or it's much more clear. And so then what our team gets is just the best, highest possible communication from him so that they don't get confused. You know, if they're sitting in a meeting there, he might say 10 different things and they're all high priority. And then they're like, but what did he really mean? And what do I do now? That's when meetings get really dangerous because you can leave them feeling even more confused and unclear than you did when you went in.
Yes, I do a little coaching 101 with women entrepreneurs, and we use Voxer for some, I call them clarifying questions. These are typically questions that are yes or no questions. And I love some of my clients that 90% of the time, if they're frustrated, they're like, start talking to Voxer and they're recording their audio and they send it and they'll send something right away. Oh, forget it. I actually just answered my own question by asking you the question.
Like, exactly.
Oh, my job here is done. This is great. Pursuing big ideas, following your dreams, and taking chances can feel scary, especially if you're doing this all alone. That's why I created the Wild Collective, a community for women just like you who want to create, launch, and grow a wildly successful business. Whether you're just starting out or in a rut or aiming for the first $1 million in sales, there is nothing more powerful than surrounding yourself with a community of women just like you that want to succeed. Look, you can Google the answers to all your business questions and find some stellar content. You can vent to your friends, or you can lean on your neighbor for some business advice. But nothing compares to joining a vetted community of insanely talented and mindful women that are all reaching for the same dream, to live their life on their terms while growing a purpose-led business. In the Wild Collective, we host monthly expert trainings, group coaching from myself and other experts, access to a growing portal of incredible content designed to help bring your business to life and beyond, discounts to offers and events, and the greatest growing community in this corner of the internet. So if you're craving that connection and community as a listener to the podcast today, you can gain early access to the Wild Collective. Simply pause this episode. Pause the episode, click the link in the show notes, and join us. I can't wait to connect with you and help you grow a wildly successful business. See you there. Okay, so tell me, I really want to know the next one. What is your Winning the Week method? Or have we already talked about this?
We have not. So it's the Winning the Week method is what I'm writing a book about actually right now. That's coming out July 12th of this year. It's called Winning the Week. And it's a simple 5-step process that you can do in 30 minutes every Friday or Saturday if you prefer, but I prefer Fridays to plan your upcoming week. So the idea is that it's fun, that it's fast, that it's incredibly effective, and it includes all the elements that you need to create a winning plan for the week. Meaning you get home on Friday or you close your laptop on Friday and you're like, wow, like I really had a good week. I had a powerful week. I might feel a little battered and bruised from all the hard work that I did, but I also know that I pushed the ball forward in a major way. I didn't just stagnate this week. I really made some forward progress this week. So the first step of the method is what we call learn a lesson. So this is a reflective practice that most people skip past that gives you the opportunity to review your previous week and be like, what went down? Was it a good week? Could something have been done better? Or did I really crush it? And I want to make sure that I can replicate that this coming week. So like, what was it that I did really well that I want to make sure to keep doing this coming week? So it's just a simple reflective practice that encourages you to make your performance 1% better and learn a lesson from your past mistakes or your past success. The second item in the Winning the Week method is called choose your leveraged priority. So this again goes back to that concept of leverage, where you're not making a laundry list of all the things that you need to do this week. You're really trying to identify like one thing that would really make all your future weeks easier and do that thing by Monday or Tuesday. So I'll give you a quick example of this. One of our coaches at our team, Jessica, she was like, oh, well, this week I decided to make my unleveraged task leveraged. I was like, oh my gosh, tell me more. This is so great. So she was like, well, every week I have to send out a newsletter to my email list. And it's something that I don't really like doing. It's kind of a slog. It's like the same thing every week. It's kind of a time suck. I've done it so much now that I don't enjoy doing it. So instead, I decided to add leverage to it by creating an SOP, a standard operating procedure, where my assistant could do about 90% of like the setup of the email and the copy. And I was just doing the final 10%, the checking, the touch-ups, the scheduling, the final 10%. So instead of just doing what she's always done and sitting down and getting the newsletter out, she decided to add leverage to that, which is just, it's going to be so awesome for her because all future weeks, she's not going to have to do that 90%. She's only going to have to do the 10%. So that's the second step of the Winning the Week method, is choosing that leveraged priority. The third step is something that we call interrogate your calendar. So most people do like a calendar review, right? Like check your calendar, see what's coming up. We've sort of strengthened that to interrogate because the idea behind this is, hey, let's make sure that all 168 hours of your upcoming week are being accurately reflected in your calendar. Your calendar is kind of the most ideal place to see your time supply, your available like life force that you have for the coming week. And so you want it to be as accurate as possible. So a lot of the times you check your calendar, there's stuff on there that you actually don't plan on doing, but whatever, like someone invited you to it. So it's just on your calendar now. So we'd encourage you to go ahead and delete those events and make sure that things that you do want to do or you do have plans to do are actually on your calendar. So any hard-edged commitments where you have to be at a specific place at a specific time are in there. And all the time.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm just raising my hand. Like, I have a question on that because now people are like, yes, I love this. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to interrogate my calendar. What is your advice on how to cancel a meeting that you know is just not worth your time? Like, what do you say that's not insulting to the other person?
What I would say is something like, hey, so-and-so, unfortunately, I'm so sorry. I got double booked during this time. What I'd love to do to still get you that information in the time that you want it is for you to send me a screencast so that I can answer any questions you have right away, even before the meeting happens. If that's not possible, we can try to reschedule for a future date. However, with my schedule being so full, that might not happen for quite a few weeks. So let me know if you can send me that screencast or just email me the questions for the meeting. Something like that.
Boom. Okay. I mean, you're not sponsored by Screencast, are you?
No, I know. I really should be.
You should be. It's like, this is perfect. So Screencast, I'm assuming it's a tool, much like Loom, right?
Yes. Screencast is the technology. Loom is one such software.
Yeah. Okay. So Screencast is the call. Okay. Which one do you use? Do you use Loom or something?
I use Loom. I mean, you can use even Zoom, right? Like we're doing a screencast almost right now, right? It's the same idea. It's just a recording of your screen and you talking over it. In fact, there's built-in softwares that can do it, like QuickTime, if you have a Mac, can do screencasts. But Loom makes it just so darn easy because it automatically uploads it and gives you a little shareable link that you just are like, click the link and pop it into whatever, an email, a chat, an Asana task, wherever you want to put it.
And you can see when someone's viewed it.
Oh, yes.
So you know they saw it. Okay. So you've talked about the first 3.
Yes. So the 4th step is something we call triage your task list. So again, this is not about just making a task list of all the things you have to do. It's about triaging it too. And that word comes from really Napoleon's army back when they invented this idea of triage. There were doctors in the army that were trying to save all the wounded soldiers, but failing, obviously, because there was just too many casualties. They couldn't help everybody. So they invented triage to sort of separate the wounded soldiers into different camps, right? Like the ones that they wanted to treat first were the ones who were most likely to recover and be able to return to battle, followed by the ones who were most likely to recover at all. And then unfortunately, the people that they thought, the soldiers they thought would not recover even if treated, were left last. And we have to do something similar with our tasks because there's simply not enough of us to go around. There is always going to be more to do than we have time to do it in. And that's great because I want to be someone who's busy, who's needed, who's wanted, but it's also my job to make sure that the tasks that I'm getting done are the ones that are basically the highest bidders for my time, that are the most worthwhile for me to do. So step number 4 is about that. It's about triaging your task list, making sure that the only things that are on it are the ones that are truly either important or highly urgent. And they don't include things that, frankly, you never planned on doing anyway. Things like cleaning out that one closet. It's like, would it be nice to clean out that closet? Yes. Like, would it feel great? Yes, I totally get that. But in a busy week where you're kind of just hoping it gets done, the likelihood that it's going to happen is quite low. And there's no shame at all in just moving it to a future week. Just being like, I don't have time for that this week. I'm going to do it later. So that's step number 4, triaging your task list. And step number 5, this is also one that people don't do. I know hardly anybody who is doing this, is to actually allocate your time demands, meaning your tasks, to your time supply, which is represented by your calendar. So this is actually getting like kind of hardcore and literally scheduling in when you're going to get certain things done. This is so powerful because if you don't schedule things in, you're going to have the tendency to overcommit yourself. And you're going to have the tendency to let urgent, like last minute things steal you away. Because when you see these big open blocks in your calendar, you're like, I'm free now. I have free time. So sure. Oh, you want me to like go take a look at that design right now? Okay, I'm free. I don't have a meeting. I must be free. So when you're actually allocating that time demand to your time supply, that's when you can check your calendar and be like, nope, this is the time I have blocked right now to work on this really important presentation. And if I don't do it now, I'm not going to be able to do it the rest of my week. So this is sort of like the ultimate step of the pre-planning that really makes your plan a plan, not just sort of like wishful thinking.
I love it. So we talked about my critical power list that I do every morning, of which the things that require my focus time, like obviously 9 p.m. lights out, can't necessarily go into my calendar, but it could. And I take that and I put that into my calendar. The way that I describe the importance of this to my coaching clients is I say, imagine you had like a Calendly or a call scheduling link out there publicly for anybody to schedule free time on your calendar. Is this going to, what's a word that you've said? Is this going to like essentially like take over all of your time, the allocate of time demands, your time demands for the time supply. So essentially it's like you have this list of things you have to do that if you're not actually scheduling them into the calendar, then that's considered free time. People can just be like, oh, I need to chat with you or I need this from you. So if whenever they can publicly see your free time, they're going to take it.
Oh, they totally will. And life has a way of just filling up your time. I mean, life is going to happen no matter if you just sit there or not, right? You have to really be so intentional, sort of like with your money. You got to tell it where to go. With your time, you have to tell it where to go, like even more, because otherwise it will find a way of just slipping through your fingers. Yeah. And one thing I would recommend doing if you have, for example, an unpredictable schedule. So a lot of people feel like, well, I mean, no, but like my kids really do need me. And I just don't know when they're going to need me and for how long they're going to need me. What I really recommend doing is scheduling in large blocks of flex time into your calendar. So I call this UUW time. You can call it whatever you want. I call it unplanned, unwanted work. This could come from a team member. It could be like a last minute crisis on my website. It could be something with my daughter, with my dog, with my husband. I mean, it could come from anywhere. And it's just a block of time where I'm like, I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I know it's going to happen for sure. So I'm going to put it in my calendar and then I can move it around as my day progresses. So say I went through my entire day on Monday and I didn't use any of my UUW time. It's like, okay, well, great. I can go ahead and fill that up with some of the stuff I had planned for Tuesday and get a head start on that and move that UUW time to later in the week. So this is really, really crucial for people who feel like they have just a lot of variability or a lot of events or crises that they can't plan for.
I like that UUW. It's like, ew.
Yeah, it's sort of like, ew, like we don't like it, but it's going to happen.
Ew time. Okay, this is all amazing stuff. And I could definitely be asking you questions all day long. But I do have one last question for you. When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that for you?
For me, being a wild woman just means being really free, to have a lot of time and just flexibility for myself. Part of that freedom for me is being an expat. You know, I feel completely unrestricted by a lot of the things that were restricting me in the US. Part of that means financial freedom. So again, another great reason why we moved out of the US was to grow our wealth more rapidly and having that financial freedom. We don't have a mortgage. We don't have any debts whatsoever. We're very close to hitting our financial independence, retire early goal. That just makes me feel so free. We have sort of like spiritual or time freedom, meaning like we can do whatever we want with our time. We don't feel like we have to do anything. Everything we're doing is by choice because we genuinely want to sit down and do work every day. So that's sort of what I interpret to be like me as a wild woman. You know, I feel much more like myself, like I'm free to be me versus trying to fulfill somebody else's expectation of what I need to be.
I love that. You're a wild woman. I love this nomadic life and what you've built and the life you've created. I think it's beautiful. It's very aspiring. So if people want to go online to find you, follow you, or sign up for your offers, where can they go?
Yes, I would love to stay in touch with everybody listening today. I would go first to winningtheweek.com. This is going to give you both access to our upcoming book and also exclusive access to one of our most in-demand trainings, which is a more in-depth training on the Winning the Week method that I sort of touched on today. So that's going to come in that training. It's going to come with an actual download and worksheet that you can use right away to start pre-planning your weeks. So our goal is for everybody who attends that masterclass to develop that strong pre-planning habit and start winning their weeks right away. So check out winningtheweek.com to get access to that. It is completely free.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all that in the show notes. Carey, this has been incredible. I can't wait now to go and interrogate my calendar. I'm just going to do select all delete.
Oh, perfect.
And then I'll send you a loom of my productivity hack. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Renee. This was awesome.
So there you have it. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Into the Wild. To make this girl happy and to help reach other women who are dreaming of starting their business, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and everywhere you listen in. Also, if you want to find me in the wild, check me out on Instagram at Renee_Warren. That's RENEE_WARREN. And leaving you with one of my favorite tips of all time: the best advice you could ever receive is from someone who has successfully done it before you. Until next time, ladies, peace out.